for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that hold some close and others distant. I pay homage to the Sublime Mother of the victorious ones of the three times, the inexpressible, inconceivable, and indescribable perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceasing, and of the nature of space, and which is the object of realization of the self-knowing primordial wisdom. Okay. I have one announcement before we start, which is very fitting, I suppose, for Sakadawa. Opportunities. I'm just saying. Okay. Now, this is about, well, actually, Doris, she initiated it. She asked whether she could make an announcement in the group. But the problem is with the discussion group and the announcement groups, they're already quite cluttered, especially the discussion group. So in the end, we decided, everyone organizing this particular class, to just announce it. Anyway, there are not that many in the discussion group. More are in the announcement group. So anyway, so the thing is, it's about a monk called Venerable Lobsang, or Venerable Gen Lobsang, I should say. He's a well-respected monk from Kopan Monastery. He escaped from Tibet to Nepal in 2025 and would now like to undertake, he's been a teacher there for many years at Kopan, and he would like to undertake a 3-year retreat. So to make this possible, he requires financial support. He wants to do it at Bodha in Kathmandu, which is quite noisy and stuff, but you know, if someone has good concentration, it doesn't matter where they do it. I remember Lama Zopa Rinpoche once talked about a man who lived in a monk, an amazing practitioner he mentioned. He lived in the living room of his family. They put a curtain to separate his bed and his area, you know. And then he was doing his retreat with the family, with the kids playing in the living room, watching TV. I mean, that's concentration, right? So anyway, he would like to do it at Bodha because, there are some other places as well, Solokhumbu and so forth, but I suppose it's kind of difficult to be looked after in these places. So anyway, but the total amount that is needed for these 3 years are about $11,000. So he does not need the full amount immediately, but would be grateful for any support, basically. So in any form, maybe someone contributing regularly, possibly over the 3 years, or contributing for a certain time, or just a one-time donation. Anything would be welcome. Now, the reason I accepted this is that I think it's a wonderful opportunity, especially during the month of Sakadawa, to accumulate great merit while creating the causes for ourselves to be able to undertake a long-term retreat in the future. So just an opportunity to practice generosity. Of course, obviously, this retreat is only possible when a lot of people support it. I mean, no one is going to be able to pay that full amount. It's a lot of money, although it's just for 3 years, but still. So anyone who would like to make just a small contribution is welcome, anything. And so, as I said, the initiative has been organized by Doris from Austria. So please contact her. She's given her WhatsApp contact here, her phone number. So I'll just read it for those who'd like to. For those online, it's easy to just follow it. So it's +43 for Austria, +43, then 699 1112 0777. So +43 699 1112 0777. So she can provide you with all the necessary information about how to donate. Yeah, this is so rare at this day and age that people actually want to do a 3-year retreat. And it's quite rare. It's become quite rare. And I'm totally in support of anything like that. So that's why I've agreed to do this. Okay, great. That's the first thing. And then Kunbenla wants to make an announcement. Great, you're just in time. Okay.
So Geshe-la will give her annual advanced course at Tushita. This year it's on
the mind.
Lorik from the 4 tenet schools.
Mainly from the point of view of the Sautrantrika, but then also introducing some of the differences between the different tenet schools. Yes.
Right. So this is starting on June 19th. And parallel to that, we have an introductory course. So both are now heavily overbooked. Yes. So please, if you wanted to still attend Geshe-la's course, register basically today or tomorrow. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, I thought I was going to be here alone today, given what I talked about last time about Buddhist logic, there were some difficult discussions we had. And in fact, I'm very grateful to Rika, who's not here now, but maybe she's listening online. We actually got together, had a drink somewhere in McLeodganj, and she told me, when we talk about pervasion, I mean, I'm so used to this as part of Buddhist logic. Remember, we talk about take the subject, myself, I will not possibly die tomorrow. I could possibly die tomorrow because I'm human. We did that syllogism because somehow we feel, not that syllogism, that kind of logical statement, that logical consequence, because we often feel, yeah, anyone could die anytime. I could die anytime. We accept the pervasion. Whoever is a human could die tomorrow. Okay, I should say ordinary human, but never mind. That's kind of a given. So whoever is just ordinary, and I include myself, being an ordinary person, I could die tomorrow. Okay, I accept that. I accept that pervasion. I accept that I'm a human being, but somehow I think I'm not going to die tomorrow. I'm too busy. So that's kind of a classic example where there's a mutual contradiction when it comes to whoever is an ordinary human or whoever is a human being could possibly die tomorrow, or being a human being entails the possibility of tomorrow's death. I'm a human being, but I won't die. You see the mutual contradiction there. Anyway, we had this whole discussion, pervasion. It's called pervasion in Tibetan. So whatever is one is necessarily the other. Whoever is a man is necessarily a human being, or whoever is a woman is necessarily, I don't think cats are man, no. So, so whoever is a man is necessarily a human being and so forth. Not whoever is male, but anyway, so we had all this discussion in how Buddhist debate happens. And the pervasion was difficult because not only do we say whatever is Z is necessarily Y, I put it in these, I use these variables. Take the subject X, it follows that it's Y because it's Z. So whatever is Z must be necessarily Y in order for that logic to hold. And calling it pervasion is one thing, but as Rika pointed out, to then say whatever is Z is necessarily pervaded by being X. Or to give an example, whatever is a mind is necessarily pervaded by being impermanent, is stretching it. She actually told me that she was part of an online course and it was going quite well in English. And then the moment they introduced that pervader, everyone quit. Literally everyone quit. Yeah, that was, I wonder whether it was just the pervasion thing, but still, she felt, that, and I get it, because it's so weird to say that. Whatever is a mind is pervaded by being impermanent. Really, what you're trying to say is whatever is, and that's the literal Tibetan translation. What you want to say is really whatever is a mind is characterized by being impermanent. But it doesn't go the other way around. Whatever is impermanent is not characterized by being a mind, doesn't have to be a mind. So that makes all sense to us. But as I also mentioned before, one of the greatest difficulty we have studying Tibetan Buddhism is not so much the ideas or the logic, it's the language. Some of you were maybe there when there was one student, what was his name, I forget, who had a very thick Texan accent. I forget his name now. And I couldn't even imitate it, but one day he just, out of desperation, he kind of said with this strong Texan accent, and I really don't know how to do it. We just don't talk like that in Texas. Well, no one talks like that, not just in Texas, but nowhere in the world. So this is a weird language. And it's so hard to decide also for me, am I going to just stick to the language, or am I going to try and water it down, kind of use a different word, which has already a different connotation to the actual connotation of the word in Tibetan, right? It's quite difficult. So the Tibetans, they had a great solution when they were in that situation. They just made up new words. I mean, they had already the Tibetan language that they could use to communicate, on a daily basis, barley seeds and, I don't know, milk and honey and what have you. I mean, everything you need to communicate. But they didn't have any words for the Dharma. And instead of using words from their everyday language, well, they just made up new words. And everyone had to learn them. Which is why, even nowadays, when His Holiness teaches the Dharma, when he really teaches philosophy, you can see people nodding off or having tea. I mean, usually the lay people who haven't studied the Dharma, no, they don't understand. That's why His Holiness every now and then would then go back to ordinary kind of advice, day-to-day advice that everyone understands, getting angry or harm yourself and so forth. And then he goes back into that really deep philosophy and people go, don't understand unless you learn that vocabulary. It's a kind of different language. Okay. So having said this, for us it's a little bit easier because there's no separate language as such. We do use words from everyday life, but we use them in a different way and it's still strange. So yeah, there's a bit of that difficulty. So I've changed that pervasion thing. I mean, even in the handout I sent you, the diagram I sent you, I'm going to resend it to you because I only changed it just before class. So those of you who are in the group, in the WhatsApp group, you'll receive the handout, the diagram on some of the debate structures. And again, I stopped saying whatever is produced by causes and conditions is pervaded by being impermanent. Rika thought that sounded like an invader, instead of being pervaded, being invaded. And I also couldn't find a good alternative. I had penetrate, permeated, suffused. Suffused was not bad, right? Except that a lot of people don't know what that means, right? I mean, I had to look it up. So, well, that doesn't mean that a lot of people don't know it. But the point is like suffused. Yeah, it's kind of the category of impermanent. Suffuses the category of being a mind. It characterizes it, in other words. Okay, it permeates it, whatever. No, but I've used characterized. All right. Anyway, having said this, there's more. And then Neil did something really good. He used it exactly right. Now, I don't know whether Neil has learned how to debate. I have no idea. But he did a really good job to disprove what I said last time, using a consequence. Yeah. And this is such an important discussion, and it's amazing. It's been this ongoing discussion in the discussion group here. And sometimes I think, we don't need a text. I could just take all your messages and have a whole class I can teach on what you're saying. It's amazing, analyzing what you've said. There are certain bits I would disagree with, but there are other information, there's other comments that are so profound. So I'm really amazed at the level of understanding here, and also at the level of analysis that people engage in. So, for instance, we had this whole discussion, and this is where it comes down to. So the discussion, how do phenomena really exist? I mean, we're all trying to understand emptiness. Well, I don't know whether all of us do, but this is one of the reasons we get together learning about Uma, learning about the middle way. And I'm so grateful to the Chittamatra school, because it helps us to understand. We have this school that's called the mind-only school, where everything just comes from the mind. Okay. I'm grateful to this school because there is this philosophical school, although it's not the highest school. It is a Buddhist school, but it's not the highest school. But it allows us to kind of think along these lines to better understand the highest view. So what is that mind-only school view? That there's only mind, and everything comes from the mind. Mind exists as an entity that is more real than anything else. Now that's of course not the final view, but even the Prasangika explanation seems to be saying that, because there's so much emphasis on the mind. Ordinarily, we have a sense, yes, there's this external reality out there, and it's got not very much to do with my own mind. Whereas the Prasangika says it has everything to do with our own mind. The way we perceive phenomena, we perceive it that way because of the mind we have. That seems pretty close to mind only, doesn't it? And so someone's argument was, well, it's so difficult to say, okay, the Prasangika school accepts external existence. That was the whole argument. That's what we started off with, like Neil's argument. Okay, phenomena don't exist intrinsically. Okay, they only exist because the mind labels them. I can accept that. But that seems to mean that phenomena cannot exist externally because of the importance given to the mind. And I guess I'm guilty of, how do I put it? Of giving this impression that the mind is everything and that the mind is just more real than anything else, which is not true from the Prasangika school point of view. And Atzale, she used to post things in here. She posted this really interesting kind of conversation. Didn't probably take place, but like two people talking about the mind. And saying that at this day and age, at this materialistic world, if we talk about mind, it becomes like a material, substantial kind of thing. Mind. We say often enough, and it seems to be something so concrete and substantial. Although the Prasangika says, no, the mind is also merely labeled. The mind is merely designated by the mind. So it has the same mode of existence as everything else does. The phenomena don't exist in and of themselves objectively. They're merely labeled by the mind, even mind itself. So that is like, whoa, we shouldn't forget. I don't emphasize this enough. Anyway, having said all this, but we still say the Prasangika school, despite the importance of the mind, even saying the mind doesn't exist intrinsically. So Neil is asking, why would they accept external existence? And I said, well, because phenomena, when we label them, they don't just depend on the mind, but they also depend on, for instance, the basis of designation of this table. Because they're part of the table that are not the table, on the basis of that, we label table. And that table that we just labeled cannot be found from the side of its parts. But even these parts, they're also merely labeled by the mind, by mind, merely labeled. And if you search for, I don't know, the surface of the table, beyond having just been labeled, you can't find it. Is this the surface? Is that the surface? Every time you talk about the surface, you're talking about something that's not the surface. You point at something, it's not the surface. You look at something, it's not the surface. I see only the upper part of the table surface, not the lower part. I don't see the internal part of the table surface. Now, in actuality, every time I do anything with the table surface, it's only ever a part of it. And still it appears as if there was this surface shouting at me, I'm here, I'm a surface, don't you see me? Right? Anyway, having said all this, so my argument was basically in response to Neil's doubt that phenomena exist external to the mind, because not only the mind labels, for instance, the table, but it does so in dependence on a certain basis, and that basis is out there. Therefore, we can say phenomena exist externally. And he said, well, when you're dreaming, obviously you're not, and he put it very nicely in the form of a consequence, in the right way, actually, really nice. But never mind that. So his argument being, well, in a dream, you see a basis of labeling and you label table. He's right. In a dream, you could also, I don't know, see what you see now. It appears to your mind. And then on that basis, you label table. So does that mean the table exists externally that appears to your mind? Remember the Chittamatra school, they say, we're just like dreaming all the time. We're just dreaming all the time. It's like a dream. I just have these appearances to my mind and that's it. Okay. But, yes, as I can tell from your face, very difficult, that one. I mean, it doesn't really make sense. Because that would actually mean, am I the only one dreaming? Are you part of my dream? So you're just, right? That becomes very complicated. Now, the Chittamatra school says, no, there are other minds. Okay, so they accept the existence of other minds. But your body, the body I perceive, the physical body that appears to my mind, that only appears because of my imprints. What does your body have to do with my imprints? Right? How can that be? Who's created the karma to have that body? Because, well, the Chittamatra school still talks about the fact that we have a particular body due to the actions of the past. And secondly, if we say that even the mind is merely labeled, then the dreaming mind falls away. You remember in the Chittamatra school, the mind is given so much importance. The mind does everything. So the mind is really there. And nothing else exists. We're just like in the matrix and that's it. The matrix is really there, but the objects that appear don't. They're not there, right? But if you account for that, if you account for the Prasangika school, then that becomes really difficult. The mind is merely labeled. So how can everything arise from the mind in the way the Chittamatra school would say? They're just appearances to this mind if the mind is merely labeled. That becomes more difficult. So the mind and external phenomena are given equal weight. They lack intrinsic existence and both of them are equally just labeled, just designated by mind. Also in the Chittamatra school, one huge difficulty is that, for instance, you say smoke arises from fire, or a sprout arises from a seed. Time to have some tea. Oh, no? Never mind. So, it's a common convention that a sprout arises from a seed, right? So that is part of, and again, the Buddha himself said, I don't contradict common conventions unless the perception of that convention gives rise to suffering. But that a seed arises from a sprout, that a sprout arises from a seed, I mean, how much suffering can that create, really, that assertion? But if everything is just in the mind and you dream of a sprout without dreaming about a seed beforehand, where does that sprout come from? You see what I'm saying? If there's no external existence and I'm just dreaming, and I'm dreaming of a sprout, then we have these random dreams. We're not that consistent. Oh, before I am allowed to dream of a sprout, I have to dream of a seed and then giving water. No, it doesn't happen. You just have a dream of a sprout, of a plant that's suddenly there. So it follows that it's a plant. Yes? If you have a debate, take the subject that dream sprout, it follows that it is a sprout. Except it follows that it's not because it hasn't arisen from its cause a seed. I never dreamt of the seed. So has that not arisen from a seed? And it doesn't help if you dream about a seed, because In the Chittamatra school, I have a totally unique perception of reality because I have a unique dream. We dream similar dreams because of our karmic connection. We dream similar dreams, but they're not the same. So even if you dream of a seed at some point and then later I dream of a sprout, that doesn't mean those two are cause and effect. So it no longer works. Bernd made this. He put this argument. He said, well, in a dream, I have to make sure I don't misquote him. He says, take the basis of designation, a dream. Puts it in the debate language. So take the base of designation inside a dream. It follows not the same in external existence outside the dream, because dreaming of eating bread does not make me full outside. So he's saying if just dreaming about bread, eating bread, doesn't mean you're full. Right? But then I could argue sometimes that could happen. I mean, you may have eaten a lot and you dream you're hungry still, right? You dream, although you just, stuffed your face with cake, then you fall asleep and you dream you're hungry. Possible, isn't it? Or you eat a lot in your dream and you wake up and you really don't want breakfast, you feel so full. Could happen, because there's a lot to do with the mind. But anyway, forget about that. I mean, Bernd definitely's got a point that there's no pervasion. But I think one of the main arguments is really to say there's no external phenomena. It's too absurd for the reasons I just gave. So it's not Chittamatra school. But again, Neil, and I'm addressing Neil here in particular, who struggles with this, but he's not the only one. I remember one person last year sent a lot of messages called Jimmy. For years, when I gave other classes like online, he was always going on about the Chittamatra school. That set much better with him than the other schools. Because it's kind of easier to feel like everything comes from the mind, especially when the emphasis is so much on the mind. But no, that is actually not what's meant. The mind is also merely labeled. And again, as I said last time or the time before that, external existence can be accepted for two reasons. Because the Buddha himself said, I do not contradict worldly conventions. But that's not the only reason, because he definitely contradicts the worldly convention that phenomena exist intrinsically, as people would believe ordinarily. But that belief does not harm, that belief harms us. The belief that myself exists intrinsically, that harms me. The belief that there is an external seed and sprout, that doesn't lead to suffering. That was my argument. That doesn't lead to suffering. But okay, we still need to discuss it. But never mind. So that's enough on that. But then the next message, and I'm not going to go through this message, but Andrew did an incredible job. So again, I could fill a whole class with this, but I don't want to do that. But Andrew did a really good job with this long message. Again, comparing these different schools. So please read it if you like at your own time. I have to read it again because there's a lot in there. And I'll continue now with the text. Yes, please.
There's a thing that's been going on for me for a long time now, and that is regarding the dream. We say that the objects of the dream appears to the mind, but there are no objects. So what is it that's appearing? Is it appearing, or is it the mind that's creating the appearance? What appears?
Okay, so Alan's question is something he's not understood for a long time. It's like when we say in the dream the object appears, but then there is no object. Yeah. All right, yes, okay, so there is something appearing. There's an appearance, and that is the object. So the way we talk, it seems as if there was an object, and that is somewhere out in space, and it happens to appear. But that's not what the Chittamatra school says. The Chittamatra school says there are appearances to the mind, and these we call objects.
It's not just, it's in general. When you're dreaming, there are certain things that's happening.
Dream objects.
Yeah, dream objects.
They're called dream objects, yes.
I guess, yeah. But isn't it actually the mind that's creating those objects?
Yes, that's true. I mean, actually, that's something else I wanted to say. Thank you for reminding me. that actually our the state when we awake influences our dreams. Why do we dream about certain things? Because we experience things in our dream. So actually the awakened state influences our dream state, but it's not necessarily the other way around. Rarely we even remember. So it's actually in our awakened state, certain things happen. They leave certain imprints in our mind. They leave some traces in our mind. And these then lead to the dream experiences. That doesn't mean that we always dream what we went through our day, but it's usually based on something we experienced. And those are called dream objects. These appearances. Created by the mind, yes, they come from the mind. That's why there's a distinction when we study philosophy. Is there an elephant in your dream? No. No, there's no elephant in your dream. There's a dream elephant. But a dream elephant is not an elephant. That's this distinction. Unfortunately, in the first volume of Science and Philosophy in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, somehow the translator said it the other way around. I'm just translating into German and I came across the English, and the English says, the dream elephant, it doesn't exist, but the elephant in the dream exists. It should actually be the other way around. It's probably a typo. It should actually be the other way around.
So the dream, whatever object, the elephant,
yes.
It's a purely creation of the mind.
It's a purely creation of the mind, nothing but.
Influenced maybe by something you saw on TV
yes,
or something.
exactly. Something we experience through. I suppose that's the reason. Yeah, usually that's how they explain it. All right, let's continue now with the text. Let's go back. We got to page 155. Returning to the three reasonings. This is a good time. We analyzed what are called consequences. Explained those. Probably I explained a little bit too much because what you need to know for this here, actually it's not that difficult. And we analyzed what are called syllogisms, but they come up again now. So even without having been here or without remembering, even if you were here, I think the following makes it clearer. So now we return to what are called the three reasonings. One of the major debate topics that are part of your study of this topic. Okay, so every time we study, we go through different topics, and there are topics with very little debate, and there are topics with a lot of debate. So this happens to be one topic here. So a typical debate concerning the first reasoning. So what are the three reasonings? What do they try to establish? They try to establish that not only if you want to become awakened, if you want to become or reach the state of a fully enlightened Buddha, do you need to realize emptiness? You also need to realize that if you want to become liberated, just liberated, if you want to become an arhat, which, except for the Prasangika, all the other schools deny. Now, I cannot tell you exactly why. I don't know exactly why, but it kind of makes sense from the point of view of this progression. I don't know exactly, I mean, I don't know historically why this is the case, but from the point of view of the progression, you have the lower schools, you have the schools starting Vaibhashika, Sautrantrika, then all the way to Chittamatra, Svatantrika, and then Prasangika. And most of the study we do is or not a lot of our studies, is a comparative study of these. It seems contradictory, it seems overwhelming, not contradictory, it seems overwhelming. However, it's so helpful to understand the Prasangika school. That's why I torture you going through it. I mean, it's so hard, but once you get a bit of a sense of it, once you remember some of the basic bits, you can really see how your mind can go through these views and become more flexible, until it's flexible enough to understand the Prasangika school. So let me remind you of this much. What is Vaibhashika and Sautrantrika, the two lowest schools that you start usually with? What do they say? Everything out there exists the way it appears. External existence, of course. And not just that. We're not talking about conventional external existence. No. There's the mind and there's this external world, and they exist parallel to each other, but our mind doesn't influence what we perceive. And that's how it feels. and I'm not saying how we see it intellectually. I cannot stress this enough. I may have, the very strong view, no, there's only this external world because there's my mind. But that's usually an intellectual view, which does not influence us on an emotional level. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't influence our actions, because our actions of body and speech are very much influenced by our emotional state. Last time I said this, we intellectually know I could die anytime, I could die tomorrow. Emotionally, no, I'm too busy, it's not going to happen. So I'm not prepared I'm not prepared to die tomorrow at all. Yeah, I'm not acting according to the fact I could die tomorrow. Oh, no, not prepared. Therefore, it's that emotional state that's most important. And emotionally, it feels as if there's this world out there and I'm just seeing it the way it is. And everyone else probably does as well. It feels that way. You see the same thing as me. Don't you see how nice it is? And the other person goes, no. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Right? That's how, yeah. Again, the whole thing about taste, right? About taste. Last time I couldn't come up with a debate, but then not a consequence as such, but there's a whole debate you could formulate. If someone, on one hand, again, I just want to point out that kind of emotional and intellectual contradiction. If someone says, oh, that person's got a terrible taste, look at the way they dress, while at the same time believing beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, that it's totally subjective. So it follows this person's clothes are beautiful. They're not ugly. It follows they're beautiful because beauty is subjective, right? And if it's ugly, it follows it is ugly. I agree. It follows it's not ugly because beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. And then if the person says, well, I subjectively feel it's ugly, then you could say, well, it's also beautiful. Because from your perspective, being ugly from another perspective is beautiful. It follows, therefore, these clothes are not beautiful. So are they neither? Is there no beauty, no ugliness? Whoa. Or they're both beauty and ugly. What are you going to say? Not easy, right? Either you have to say they're both beautiful and ugly, or you have to say they're neither. They're neither or both. So then, a fire, hot or cold? Could be cold from the perspective of one person, have some weird skin disease, or just a different type of species. Or it could be hot from our perspective. So it becomes very difficult. Anyway, you see what I'm saying? I mean, right? There's always something to debate, basically. Okay. Having said all this, going back to what I originally said. Now, the first two schools, Vaibhashika and Sautrantrika, they are so great because they very much think like us. But they say the self doesn't exist the way it appears. They already start cutting away at the self. So the way we perceive of ourselves as an I that exists separate from mind and body, that controls our actions. Who feels that way? That the self controls my mind and my body. Feel. Don't think like do you feel that way? Your I? Yes? Does it feel that way? I'm looking at you. Yes. Does it feel that way? Your I is kind of the controller of mind and body? Does your I, yourself, control your mind and your body? Well, it depends on what you consider the I. Yes. Okay, you're right. That's a very Buddhist answer.
Great assumption.
Yes, but like, just thinking, just when you're not thinking Buddhism, right? When you're just thinking, I'm taking a break from Buddhism. Oh no, I'm kidding. No, but just thinking like, yeah, like the way it feels, like someone annoys you. Oh, why did they annoy me? Someone bumps into you. Like, why did they bump into me? Right? Like, how dare they just bump into me? We take it personally. I love that sentence. I take it personally, or I don't take it personally. When I don't take it personally, it doesn't, my eyes are somehow not insulted. When I do take it personally, it is, right? And so what is that I that is now taking it personally, that feels insulted? Or the I that feels ignored when someone bumps into me. When they just bumped into my arm, that's not my I, right? If I identify my I somewhere in my body, it's certainly not in my arm, somewhere here. Sometimes here, or sometimes in my heart or in my belly. That's, not my kneecap and not my elbow. But someone bumped into me, and I feel very strongly, how dare they bump into me? They just ignored me. They took care of other people, but not me. Have you had that thought? Yeah, of course. Oh, great opportunity to check. We need those emotional state, these emotionally laden, like, is that the right word? Emotionally laden kind of, right? So these kind of situations, they're best thing when you feel really pissed off with what someone has done. You feel really upset, you're annoyed. That's usually when there's a strong sense of, I've been insulted, I've been bumped into, they didn't take care of me. Where's that I? The I that feels ignored. Where is it? It feels very strongly as if there was this owner and so forth. Anyway, that's what the Vaibhashika and the Sautrantika teaches us. That self cannot be found. What a relief. Someone bumps into you, it's big, just bumped into my body. It's not such a big deal, right? Anyway, without going into the consequences of that, but that's what the Vaibhashika and the Sautrantika teach us. They say, everything's out there, that's fine, but the self doesn't exist the way it appears. Then you have Chittamatra. And since previously the mind didn't play much of a role, Chittamatra takes you to the other extreme. Everything is in the mind. So you go from one extreme to the next extreme. Hopefully to find a balance with the Madhyamika school that says, oh, the mind is extremely important, but phenomena exist externally. So roughly speaking, that's their view. And now you have the Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chittamatra, and one of the sub-schools of the Madhyamika, all saying, having another assertion, which is you don't have to realize the lack of intrinsic existence in order to become a Buddha. Or in order to become self-liberated, in order to become liberated. In fact, you don't have to realize emptiness. That's what the Vaibhashika says, that's what the Sautrantika says, that's what the Chittamatra says, and the Svatantrika. They all say, you don't have to realize emptiness. Don't have to realize it. You only have to realize the lack of a self-sufficient, substantially existent I. In other words, the I that I just explained. An I that exists as a separate owner of mind and body. That is upset when someone bumps into me. That is upset when someone, calls me a jerk or whatever. That's not the worst Buddhist. What's the worst Buddhist insult? Selfish. I think, right? Right? They can either I'm selfish, I'm proud of being selfish. But the first thing we learn, all our problems come from our selfishness. So we certainly don't want to be selfish. Anyway, so someone calls me selfish. So whoa, what an insult, Buddhist insult. So the point is, therefore, there's a sense that this I is now insulted. But that self is denied. That self is rejected, refuted, can't exist. Analyze mind and body. Find that I that besides mind and body is now insulted. So they all say that's all you need to realize in order to become a Buddha. The only philosophers, the only philosophical school that says you have to realize emptiness is the Prasangika school. Only the Prasangika school says that. You don't need to realize anything else. And I guess, because it's so difficult to realize emptiness in the first place, so this idea of emptiness being so hard, you just need it for Buddhahood, may be a bit of a relief, right? Okay, for Buddhahood you need it. No wonder it's difficult. But it makes it even harder that you need it for any permanent result. I mean, in Buddhism you have three results. Two are permanent and one is not. Two are eternal and one is not. Right? Having a good rebirth in the future, it's not very, it's kind of like, okay, I wish. I mean, better to be enlightened in this lifetime, but let's face it, it's not going to happen, and liberation neither. So a good rebirth, that would be good. But that's not eternal. It's, it's going to change again. So I could be reborn anywhere. I could be going to the worst place or have the worst kind of incarnation. But once I'm liberated, I'm done. I'm okay. There's no falling back from that. Once I'm a Buddha, no falling back from that. Therefore, these are the two eternal results. Not just permanent, but more importantly, eternal. Once achieved, there's no going back. Cannot lose it. Pardon? Well, permanent in the sense of they don't change moment by moment. Right, liberation. But the mind is liberated. It's not liberation. Liberation is just the elimination of afflictions, of afflictive emotions. That's permanent. It's not a flexible, dynamic thing that changes moment by moment. It's just the absence of something. Yeah. Right?
Cessation.
The cessation, exactly, very good. It's just a cessation. The mind that is experiencing that cessation is not the cessation. The mind goes on, the person goes on. But they've now eliminated something, and that cessation, that elimination is permanent. But not just that, it's eternal. It's eternal. Having said this, so, therefore, in the lower schools, they all say, what do they say? That you don't need to realize emptiness. And what does Acharya Chandrakirti argue? He says, take the subject, a hero, a solitary realizer. It follows that bodhisattvas on the first ground are capable of surpassing them in terms of intelligence because they're beings who have not attained the realization of the absence of intrinsic existence. Right? A bodhisattva on the first ground, do they surpass a hero, a solitary realizer in terms of their understanding? In the Prasangika school? No. In the Prasangika school? Because heroes and solitary realizer, they realize emptiness. Let's take a hero, solitary realizer, the person has become self-liberated. In terms of their understanding of reality, is their understanding inferior to that of a bodhisattva on the first ground? No, they all realize the same thing. They all realize emptiness, right? So they all realize the same thing. That's what Acharya Chandrakirti says. They don't surpass bodhisattvas, or bodhisattvas don't surpass arhats because same realization in terms of emptiness. Okay. But if you assert that heroes and solitary realizers do not realize emptiness, they do not realize the absence of intrinsic existence, then it logically follows that heroes and solitary realizers arhats, it follows that bodhisattvas do surpass them in terms of their realization. So is that a correct syllogism? Is that a correct consequence or not? Why would Acharya Chandrakirti, he does posit this logical consequence in his text. Directed at who? At whom? Whom is he directing at it? Directing it at? Whom is he directing? That's a huge question. When you study this, this is the first reasoning. Acharya Chandrakirti arguing it's not right what you're saying for this reason. Is this a correct consequence or not? As we've learned, a correct consequence must have a direct contradiction with regard to three positions. What is that? The reason of the consequence is asserted. So for the person for whom this is a correct consequence, they must assert that hero and solitary realizer arhats have not attained the realization of absence of intrinsic existence. They must accept that the reason is correct. They must also accept that whoever is a being who has not attained the realization of the absence of intrinsic existence must be surpassed by a bodhisattva in terms of intelligence. Yes?
I follow you. I don't get this. Why?
Because that's the meaning of a correct consequence.
No. I understand that.
Mm.
I don't understand the logic. I don't understand the vision.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. If someone is a being who has not attained the realization of the absence of intrinsic existence, so in other words, in the Prasangika school, someone who has not realized emptiness, it follows.
But not the possibility. But doesn't matter.
Right, yeah, well, that's the whole debate then that follows. That's the whole debate.
I don't accept, because I don't accept
Yes.
that the predicate works. Right?
Yes.
Then the debate crumbles.
I know, that's the whole debate about that it crumbles. You're right, Maya. You're right.
Okay, and then I step back and I just.
You see, okay, I tell you, you're absolutely right. You caught it right in the first moment. That's true. How could anyone accept that except the Prasangika school, this privation? That's what Maya is saying. How could anyone? But then, the thing is this. I don't know how to put this. First, you have this incredible text. And you're assuming, okay, Acharya Chandrakirti gets it right. But then you're supposed to doubt it. And you can. We're supposed to doubt it all the time. So there's this weird dichotomy in a way. On one hand, you feel like, oh my God, Acharya Chandrakirti, he's really figured it out when it comes to emptiness. But then there are certain things, you're supposed to doubt them. You're always supposed to doubt them. So there's actually no contradiction. You know this person really knows what they're doing, but you constantly doubt them. That's the right kind of attitude we should have. So figure out why. And here they present a reasoning, and you assume it's a correct consequence. If it's not a correct consequence, why even mention it? Why give an incorrect logical state? I mean, like a statement incorrect in the sense, like a right? But you see, the point is here, it gives us the opportunity to really check. Okay? So let's just do this, because I'm not sure everyone agrees with Maya. Does everyone agree with Maya? Does everyone understand what Maya means?
I agree.
Pardon?
I agree.
Okay, what did Maya say?
I mean, like, okay, just.
I'm really mean. Because I'm not sure you understood what Maya.
I mean, what I understood, like,
Yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
from my side, what I understood.
Yeah.
To talk about some enlightened being,
Yes.
we need to know that this person is enlightened,
Yes.
and he reached that place.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't reach that place, what discussion was there?
But this is not about someone becoming enlightened. It's from the point of view of a particular philosophical school called the Prasangika school. They say unless you realize the Prasangika school emptiness, right? Unless you realize that, so unless a hero, a solitary realizer, unless as liberated person realizes emptiness from the Prasangika school point of view, they are surpassed by a bodhisattva on the first ground, right? And so Maya is saying, but no one asserts this assertion, and no one asserts this pervasion, right? Except the Prasangika school. Yeah. No one asserts. So if it's a correct consequence, the person at whom it is directed must assert the pervasion, must assert the reason, and the opposite of the thesis. But no one actually accepts the pervasion. That's true. Yeah, I should have left all the other stuff here. In the end, that's exactly what it is, but I didn't realize it was obvious to any of you. But it was, yes. But you see, what you do when you debate, even if you realize that, you still analyze it. You still analyze because, are you kidding me? Acharya Chandrakirti? So you have to now defend Acharya Chandrakirti, in other words. You have to defend Acharya Chandrakirti. Because if I'm debating with you, if I'm the person debating, you take turns, remember? Sometimes you're the challenger, sometimes you're the person who defends. If I'm now the challenger and Maya is the defender, I'm going to put her in this impossible situation to say, defend Chandrakirti. She cannot say, oh, no. What she just said, she cannot. Because she's not defending Chandrakirti. She's contradicting Chandrakirti. Not exactly, but yeah, I mean, she's debated also, I have to say that. She's debated for quite some time, so it's no surprise that she's able to do that. Besides, she's very clever. But the point is here, I can still put her in that situation, and now she has to defend Acharya Chandrakirti. And that's not easy. It's very easy to disagree, but not easy to, and that is all part of the exercise. It's part of this exercise to try to understand there could be something else behind it. We just don't get it, right? However, here I'm just presenting how this debate would go, like how you would analyze it, first of all. So let's try this now, since she destroyed the whole thing. No. Tomé, did you get what she said? Yeah, okay.
I think it still makes sense as consequence.
But let's see. If it is correct, okay, sorry, no. This then raises the question, to which tenant holders is this consequence directed? It must address the followers of the tenet school who do not accept the Prasangika position regarding the principal object of meditation for hearers and solitary realizers. The discussion therefore proceeds to examine which of the non-Prasangika Buddhist tenet systems incur these three contradictions. And this helps to understand these schools better. That's part of the exercise. So according to the Vaibhashika, Sautrantrika, Chittamatrins, and Madhyamika Svatantrikas, all phenomena exist intrinsically. Otherwise, they could not exist at all. Right? For this reason, they agree with the first position. A hearer, a solitary realizer, arhat, has not attained realization of the absence of intrinsic existence. They absolutely agree with that. None of them, however, accepts the second position, namely that whoever, and that's what Maya says, none of them accepts the second position that whoever has not attained realization of the absence of intrinsic existence is necessarily someone whom bodhisattvas on the first ground can surpass or outshine in terms of intelligence. Right? None of them accepts that. So that there it collapses already. Right? I did mention that, but I didn't realize that someone said, oh, you can stop there right away, therefore. You're actually right. They differ only in their treatment of the third position. But in a debate, you still want to go through it, even though you understood that. Let's see. If they all agree with the second position, the pervasion, or no, they don't agree, sorry, but the pervasion, then let's look at the other ones. They differ only in their treatment of the third position. Okay. They all agree with the first position, they all disagree with the second position. Okay, let's see whether that's true. The Vaibhashikas and Sautrantrikas accept that a hearer or solitary realizer arhat is not someone whom bodhisattvas on the first ground are capable of surpassing in intelligence. Okay, the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantrika accept that a hearer or solitary realizer arhat is not someone whom bodhisattvas on the first ground are capable of surpassing in intelligence. Why? Whereas the Chittamatrins and Svatantrikas reject this. Okay, so this is where we get to know them better. A hearer, a solitary realizer, so an arhat in general, is not someone who bodhisattvas on the first ground are capable of surpassing in terms of intelligence. That's what the Vaibhashika and Svatantrika says. The other schools, Chittamatra and Svatantrika, they disagree. All right. Why? Now here's the answer. Because the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantrikas maintain that all three types of practitioners, hearers, solitary realizers, and bodhisattvas, realize the same thing. They all realize the same thing. They realize what are called the core 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths, which is another way of saying the absence of a self-sufficient, substantially existent I. You only have to realize that. So the core aspects of the core 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths, I explained later, but really what's most important is that part of that is that core selflessness I've been talking about. There is no self-sufficient, substantially existent I, which is just a really weird and complicated way of saying there is no concrete I that exists separate from mind and body that controls our actions. That is core selflessness. It's incredible, very helpful. Once you understand that, well, you certainly won't get angry, it's much harder to get angry when someone bumps into you or, insults you and so forth. It's still a very profound understanding, yet it's not the same as emptiness. And what does the Vaibhashika say? Everyone, you want to become liberated, you have to realize the absence of such a self. You want to become a Buddha, you have to realize the absence of such a self. And anyway, hardly anyone becomes a Buddha. Most people become liberated. That's their view. Okay? So therefore, of course, a Bodhisattva on the first ground does not exceed liberated beings because they all realize the same thing. Why would one surpass the other in terms of intelligence? Okay, or in terms of wisdom. Here the word intelligence is used basically as a kind of wisdom. It's a little unusual for us to use the word intelligence in the way it is used here. But even in Tibetan, when you ordinary Tibetan, when you use the word for intelligence, it's not used in the same way in everyday life as it is used in the texts. So here sometimes intelligence and wisdom are used interchangeably. But anyways, the word wisdom here doesn't necessarily mean wisdom what we usually refer to. They talk about two wisdoms. One is more an intellectual wisdom and the other one is an intuitive wisdom. We start with the intellectual wisdom. What is that in Tibetan? Sherab. You may even know some people called Sherab. It's a popular Tibetan name. That's the more intellectually based wisdom, which then turns into the intuitive wisdom. What's that called? Yeshe. Very good. So you go from intelligence to, which is sometimes kind of almost the same as rational wisdom, okay, but really maybe there in some context there's a difference. So rational kind of intelligence, or first intelligence, then rational wisdom, kind of a better understanding that is much more felt, and then that deep intuitive wisdom, yeshe. That is the final one, yeah.
Does it always go from rational to intuitive, or can it go straight to intuitive wisdom?
Can someone go from rational to does someone always have to go from rational to intuitive, or could some people go straight to intuitive? That's an intuitive question.
What's the answer then?
Well, if you've already gone through the intellectual part in the previous life and you've already moved past that, in this life you could just have that intuitive insight. But strictly speaking, from the point of view of the Buddhist explanation, because why don't we have wisdom, rational as well as intuitive ones? Why don't we have it automatically? Because we have a misconception. That's the Buddhist view. I mean, unfortunately, it's not like in some other traditions where first there was paradise, and then you ate the wrong apple. I'm not making fun, by the way. I mean, like just simplifying. You ate a apple from the tree, and then you become. That's kind of. It seems almost like you were in that enlightened or pure Ram state, and now you're thrown into samsara. There's that similarity. From Buddhist point of view, we were never enlightened or in the pure realm, and then entered samsara. I've noticed we're very conditioned in that way, often coming from different faiths, that people ask, oh, maybe we were all enlightened one day and now we've kind of lost it. No, we've always been non-enlightened, non-liberated since beginning this time. I mean, that's like very hard for us to comprehend, that whole beginning this time thing. But besides that, we've always been under the control of our misconception. So no surprise, the greatest obstacle to a correct understanding of reality is our misconception. So how can we jump from like a total misconception, kind of skipping the rational understanding and go to intuitive one? How would that work? Right? How would that work? That is like trying to take a staircase down into a hole and, leaving out a few steps. You can't. I mean, you're just going to slip and not going to, arrive safely down at the bottom. So it's a bit like there are certain stages you have to go through. It makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. Because you need to reduce that intuitive misconception we have, right? It's kind of like intuitive in the sense it's innate. It's innate. It comes from deep within. Our misconception, we're born with it. It comes from deep within. So it's just as innate as we want that wisdom to become. And initially, it's just kind of like a coarse force that pushes that intuitive or innate misconception. It kind of undermines it. But that's all it can do. until it becomes that intuitive one, and then they're equal opponents. Once you have that deep innate understanding of reality, that is a direct realization of emptiness. That's a yeshe. It's called nyamsha yeshe in Tibetan. An absorbed meditative equipoise. Actually, the word, we call it meditative equipoise, but it's actually that intuitive wisdom. That is now an equal opponent to that innate sense of reality, that innate misconception of reality. Yeah? Yes. Anyway, going back to this here, Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, they say, well, you just need to realize core selflessness. This is true for anyone, whether you want to become liberated or a Buddha, realize the same thing. Pretty much equality for everyone. But no, I'm kidding. Pretty easy. But again, the Sautrantika and studying the Vaibhashika and the Sautrantika, they ease us into some of these difficult ideas. Let's not make it complicated. Everyone realizes the same thing. One becomes liberated, the other enlightened. Easy enough, right? And then the complication arises. Okay. All right. Anyways, let me just go. They hold that here and solitary realizer arhats have not realized the absence of intrinsic existence. And they also maintain that first ground bodhisattvas do not outshine heroes and solitary realizer arhats, those who've become liberated in terms of intelligence, because all three types of practitioners are equal in their realization of those 16 aspects. None exceeds the others in intelligence or wisdom. That's the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika. But now you have the Chittamatra and the Svatantrika systems. Now you compare these. There the situation is a little different. So you can see that the whole reason for this exercise is kind of like you trying to, in the debate it's even harder. What do you call that intelligence when you are able to hold the argument? Is it fluid intelligence? I forget now. The different forms of intelligence they identify. So in Buddhism, you also have many different types of intelligence. Intelligence where you can control your emotions. Intelligence where you know the other person's emotions, where you can put yourself into the other person's shoes. Fluid intelligence. What else? Like where you can, new situations, you're exposed to them and you can quickly find a solution to something, even though you're not familiar with the situation, and so forth. So here the kind of intelligence we're trying to develop is keeping in mind these ideas, these different ideas, and now comparing these schools without getting confused. In the debate ground, it's the perfect opportunity. Even though you read it, it makes perfectly sense, but when the other person, you have no book in front of you, no notebook, and now you need to keep in mind every single school and every question that is directed at you, you have to keep it in mind. That really trains your mind in a profound way. After the debate, it's all crystal clear in your mind. You've done that for an hour and a half, and you could give a class on that. That's how our mind works. It's incredible how in this dialogue with the other person, repeating it again and again, and being a little bit nasty as well. Like you try to, what's the word for it? You try to poke the person a little bit. Kind of like when they can't answer properly, you make fun of them a little bit. Get the adrenaline working. And the other person has to control themselves, because if they get upset, they can't be focused. You can't be focused. So you need to be totally focused. This other person is throwing all this at you. You're trying to remember not to make a contradictory statement, right? And so now they're kind of saying, come on, say, answer, quickly. You can't answer. And so you have to keep calm. It's incredible. But if you can go through that, you keep calm, and you go over and over and over it. Wow, afterwards it's all clear in your mind. It's incredible. You walk home and you go, I got that point. I thought I understood in class, but no way. So this is how your understanding deepens. That's the beauty of the debate. Oh, right, but it's difficult. Trust me, it's so hard. There were days I was so happy there was no debate. I was like, oh, I can just relax. Okay. But anyway, it's very, very rewarding. So, but I'll try to give you that sense through the text. So this is how we analyze it. By contrast, the Chittamatra and Svatantrika systems, okay, so they also accept the first position and reject the second, but differ in their treatment of the third. Like the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas, they maintain that phenomena must exist intrinsically. Therefore, they accept that hero and solitary realizers do not realize the absence of intrinsic existence. Obviously, right? The first one is easiest. They accept everything exists intrinsically, because otherwise it can't exist. Therefore, heroes and solitary realizers certainly don't realize the absence of intrinsic existence. Then you have the Chittamatrans, and the Sautrantikas, Svatantrikas, so there are two Svatantrikas. Ooh, making it a little bit more difficult, but you still can look at the text, right? If I were to just explain it to you and you had no text, impossible, I believe. But here you have two Svatantrika schools. And it shows the progression again. Think again what I said in the beginning. Vaibhashika and Sautrantrika allow for us to accept external existence the way it seems, independent of mind. Okay. Chittamatra says nothing is out there, just mind. Right? You see those two extreme views. And I said that before, when you're on a balancing beam, if you go extreme in one direction, you need to counteract that with another extreme that goes the other way in order to find your balance. So this is how it feels. That extreme view, Vaibhashika and Sautrantrika, everything exists out there. Okay, the self, the owner, okay, that we can, that we reject. But externally, nothing is dependent on the mind to exist. They wouldn't even accept modern physics, just light waves, right? Colors are just light waves. No way, they wouldn't accept that. And then the Chittamatra school, everything just in the mind. You see another extreme. Now you want to find the middle ground. The real middle ground is the Prasangika. But one school below this Prasangika is the Svatantrika, right? It's one school below. It now needs to still bring about that balance that the Prasangika, or can lead us towards this balance that the Prasangika school provides. What do? They're a little bit below the Prasangika in that they say, okay, phenomena exist intrinsically. They do exist intrinsically, but they cannot exist without appearing to a correct mind. Okay, that's fine. That's a new way of looking at things, right? The Chittamatra says there's nothing existing outside of the mind. Okay, all right, that's pretty strong. And they say, no, the actual ultimate nature of phenomena is that nothing can exist without appearing to a mind. That's modern science to a certain degree, isn't that? I mean, unless there's someone to hear sound, how could there be sound if they're just pressure waves? Right? What is sound? It's not the pressure waves. What we hear as sound are not pressure waves. So a sound is only that which you perceive on the basis of pressure waves. What is color? Colors don't exist out there. There are only certain light waves of different length, right? So therefore, blue is merely an appearance to a mind. Wouldn't modern physics have to say that? I mean, they say the brain, but never mind here. They use the word brain and mind sometimes interchangeably, but that's fine. Wouldn't you agree that this is pretty much like the modern physicists would see it? That unless something appears to a mind, so let's say sound and colors, unless it appears to a mind, it cannot exist, right? Because colors don't exist out there, and nor do sounds. Great. So that's a step below the Prasangika. Now you need a bridge. This Svatantrika school needs to be a bridge between, needs to serve as a bridge between the Chittamatra and itself and the Prasangika and itself. Okay? Prasangika is saying there's external existence. Chittamatra says there's not. But Svatantrika is saying phenomena exist only because they appear to the mind. So you have two. One that accept one Svatantrika that says there is no external existence, and the other one says there is. Okay, so you see, one sides with the Prasangika, that there is external existence, and the other one sides with the Chittamatra. But what's their difference? What's their difference? The Chittamatra says emptiness is the absence of external phenomena. The Svatantrika says, nah, although phenomena don't exist externally, but the absence of external phenomena, that's not emptiness, that's coarse. The Svatantrika school that sides with the Chittamatra school says, yeah, phenomena don't exist externally, that's a fact, but that's not the ultimate nature of all phenomena. The ultimate nature of all phenomena is that nothing exists without appearing to a correct mind. That's the emptiness. Okay? And then you have the Sautantrika Svatantrika. They side with the Prasangika school on saying phenomena exist externally. And at the same time, they say emptiness is the lack or the absence of phenomena existing without appearing to a mind. Right? The absence of phenomena only exists because they appear to a mind. That's what they mean when they talk about emptiness. They still don't agree with the Prasangika that phenomena don't exist intrinsically. That goes too far. You see that progression? It's fascinating, isn't it? Right? How it goes like slowly taking us to that, wow, that school that seems to pull the rug underneath our feet, but gently, in that gentle way. All right, now let's look at them. Now you can still follow me. I know this is full on, but you can all understand this. Trust me, if you read this 5 times, you understand it. But I don't expect anyone read this 5 times. It's hard enough to read it 1 time. This is the one thing at the side. This is the beauty of this. You read it 5 times, have a cup of tea in between, by the way. When you find your mind tightens, you have to let go. The moment your mind tightens, you can't do it. You have to keep very relaxed. So read it once, you understand the thing, and that's fine. That's fine. We have to be like first classler. No, what's the word?
First class.
That's a German word. That's German-English mixed. We have to be like kids in first class. We so know that we don't know. We're fine with it, right? We're not used to not knowing. We are adults. We're used to being able to, maneuver our way around this world. And suddenly we're exposed to Prasangika and we don't understand what they're talking about. Might as well speak Chinese. And that is very difficult for us as adults. If you have a certain age, you're used to not knowing. You're used to not knowing. But we're not at that age. So becoming a student of Buddhist philosophy, we have to let go of our expectations we understand right away. And then things get easier. If you can let go of that, don't understand a thing, great. There's something more to understand. So it doesn't piss you off, it doesn't upset you that you don't understand a word. It motivates you to read it again. Right? That's what I learned. First I was like, I was so upset my first year. It's like, I don't understand. Getting angry. I wanted to throw my books. I didn't, but still I was like, wow, this is so frustrating. I can't bear it. And I had to learn to find joy in not understanding and go, wow, there's a lot in there that I need to understand. So just to read it again with a calm mind. And the second time you understand maybe 10%, previously 0, then 10. Wow, that's such a sense of success. Like it really gives you a sense of, wow, 10%. And the third time, 20%. And now you've understood enough to at least ask a question. Because with 0, you don't even know what to ask. Right? Haven't you had that haven't you found yourself in a situation like you don't understand anything and then someone asks you, what is it you don't understand? Ask. And you're like, I don't even know what to ask. It's blank, it's dark. Right? I know exactly what that feels like. So you hear something, but after reading once, twice, 3 times, at least you know a question. If that was answered, the greatest darkness would lift. You know that, right? And then you read it again, and you think about it again. And then you can answer that question yourself. That is the greatest. This is what we're very much encouraged to do. Don't ask right away. Figure it out yourself. So you need a lot of patience because sometimes you're like burning to know the answer. You cannot wait. It annoys you that you don't know. You want to know. I see that in people. I recognize it because I had it so many times. My teacher told me, stay with it. And I'm like, you're kidding, it's the weekend. That means I have to stay with it Saturday and Sunday. No. I remember that impatience, right? So let go, never mind. Make that your project. Figure out, wow, it's the best way to use your own mind. And trust me, you come to an answer because we all have the same mind pretty much. So if some great geshe can do it, all of us can do it. It's just a matter of time, creating the right kind of causes and conditions. And I'm not being arrogant here. I'm just being realistic. I mean, they may have done it years ago, and we may take another 10 years to do so, but we're moving in the right direction. So self-confidence in the ability of your own mind. Very important. To be brazen. I talked about being brazen, right? Being brazen. The world is my oyster. Yeah. Anyway, and then you read it again and again. Trust me, if you read it time and again, well, never mind, sorry. You never have the chance to read it again because I never get through it. All right, anyway, so having said all this, let's go back. All this da-da-da. Never mind, my blah-blah. By contrast, the Chittamatrana and Svatantrika systems, so here you have the Chittamatrans and the Sautrantrika Svatantrika. They hold that practitioners of the foundational vehicle primarily need to realize the absence of a self-sufficient, substantially existent self to attain liberation. Okay, they all agree on that. The Yogacara Svatantrikas, they differ slightly. There's a slight difference. They maintain that while hearers realize this core selflessness, solitary realizer must cognize the absence of phenomena external to the mind to reach their goal. Okay, so the Chittamatra school, for them it's easy. They say only bodhisattva have to realize emptiness, the lack of external existence, and hearers and solitary realizers have to realize core selflessness. The Yogacara Svatantrika, although they side with the Chittamatra school on the lack of external existence, they add this extra complication. A hearer has to only realize core selflessness. The solitary realizer has to realize the lack or the absence of external existence. And only the bodhisattva has to realize emptiness. Yeah? So slightly more complicated. All three of the systems, however, agree that bodhisattvas must realize emptiness to attain Buddhahood. So they're all the same. Buddhahood can only be attained if you realize emptiness, but to become liberated, you don't have to realize emptiness. They all agree on that one. In the Chittamatra system, emptiness means the absence of objects existing external to the mind. And its followers hold that hearers and solitary realizers do not cognize this ultimate nature of phenomena. Okay. The Sautrantrikas also maintain that practitioners of the foundational vehicle, Hinayana, or practitioners of the foundational vehicle, do not realize emptiness, though in their case, emptiness refers to the absence of true existence. True existence means phenomena existing without appearing to our mind. Right? So true existence, nothing exists truly, because that would mean phenomena exist without having to appear to our mind. That's the emptiness of the Svatantrika school, the absence of something existing without appearing to our mind. The Yogacara Svatantrika accept the same understanding of emptiness as the Sautrantrika Svatantrika. They're Svatantrika, so they all accept the same absence of true existence. In other words, nothing exists without appearing to our mind. At the same time, they agree with the Chittamatrans that phenomena do not exist externally, while rejecting the claim that the absence of external objects constitutes emptiness. Oh my God, I can't even believe you're still looking at me and you're not asleep. Amazing. Honestly, I mean, you actually do understand. I believe you do, to some degree. I mean, you can't understand everything, but amazing. I don't know, maybe you don't. But I have no idea, whatever. This is really, really complicated, I know. But we have two chances. Either you just learn Lamrim until the end, until you die. The easy stuff, that is easy, that's still amazing. Or you study the hard stuff and you have to force yourself, you suffer. as we did, right? Yes. Anyway, it's difficult. But to understand the 4 schools of philosophy is so important. It's so helpful. What does this Yogacara Svatantrika also maintain? They maintain that although hearers must directly, and this is again like really complicated. I rewrote the sentence, so you're going to get a new version. Next time I give you an update, you get the new version. Now I'll just read the sentence the way I put this because I didn't like the sentence. That I only came across it around 3 p.m. today. There's no time to let you know. But anyway, they further maintain that although hearers must directly realize the absence of a self-sufficient, substantially existent self, and solitary realizes the absence of external objects in order to attain their respective goals, right? Does that still make sense, Tomer? Does it still make sense? Still, yeah. Some practitioners of the foundational vehicle nevertheless directly realize emptiness. Yet this realization does not serve as an antidote to the afflictive obstructions. So they say some hearers, this is where the Yogacara Svatantrika is special, they say, oh, some hearers in solitude realize, in fact, do realize emptiness. But they cannot use it to attain self-liberation. They cannot use it.
Emptiness as defined by the...
Yes, by the Svatantrika, not Prasangika. No. This is Svatantrika. The Svatantrika never accept the Prasangika. So in the Svatantrika school, in this particular subdivision of the Svatantrika, they say that there are some who realize emptiness, although it's not necessary. It's not necessary to do so. And there's a little footnote that I added later on. You can read why, and I'll tell you why now. There's a footnote on page 158. Proponents of the Yogacara Svatantrika school, they assert, so Haribhadra is one example. There's a very famous Nalanda master called Acharya Haribhadra. If you study philosophy, you may have heard of his name. If you don't, forget his name, it doesn't matter. So the name is not that important. Proponents of the Yogacara Svatantrika school assert that a bodhisattva on the path of accumulation, who has conceptually realized emptiness and whose bodhicitta, though not their renunciation has degenerated, loses the path of the universal vehicle and instead enters the hero or solitary realizer path. Now let me explain what that means. Once you become a bodhisattva, it's possible, of course, all of us will one day become bodhisattvas. You must have had renunciation first, because before you generate bodhicitta, the wish to get out of samsara. Definitely. Because why would you wish for anyone else to be out of samsara? If you don't like it yourself, you don't want it for others. So you understand the drawbacks of samsara. You want to get out of it in the sense you want to eliminate what is in the way to becoming liberated. That's renunciation. Now, with this incredible love and compassion you have for other sentient beings, you want the same for them. So what you previously wished for yourself in the form of renunciation, you now want for others in the form of great compassion. And then you realize, well, the only way to accomplish that all sentient beings, that I help other sentient beings to be released from samsara, is to become a Buddha myself. And so you generate bodhicitta. Now, bodhicitta is a mind, you want to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. If I one day meet this jerk, they annoy me to bits, and I decide, oh, I want to become a Buddha, but not for them. I'm not going to work hard for this person. We could have that thought, right? We're so upset, and I'm thinking, here I am working my butt off, as a bodhisattva, right? Working for the benefit of all sentient beings. And look what I get in response, look what I get back. This person annoying me. I mean, we have afflictions, we think that way. So I'm going to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, minus the jerk. Bodhicitta gone. Bodhicitta gone. Because it's for the benefit of all sentient beings, minus one is not enough. So you lose bodhicitta. But you haven't lost your renunciation. And if you've already realized emptiness conceptually, why would you lose your conceptual understanding of emptiness? You understood emptiness. You have renunciation. You really want to get out of samsara. Definitely. Nothing has changed when it comes to that view, to that wish. But you lost your bodhicitta. So you're automatically part of the foundational vehicle. And if you can, of course, regenerate bodhicitta, you go back to the universal vehicle. Usually that's not that difficult. You know, you take a day or two, think of Shantideva's instructions, etc., and go back to all sentient beings. Usually, right? But, you know, some people, I don't know. I mean, if you've come that far, right? Doris, what is it?
Is it really so easy to change from the universal vehicle
To the foundation.
the foundation vehicle to the Mahayana vehicle again? Then you have lost bodhicitta because don't you lose all the merits when you lose bodhicitta?
No, you don't lose all your merit when you lose bodhicitta. No worries, no worries. I mean, it's disappointing, but I mean, it's still all sentient beings except one. That's still incredible. I mean, think endless living beings. You lose bodhicitta because by definition you can no longer. But it's honestly, it's not such a big deal. It's not like I only do it for one person and the rest of sentient beings I let go. That would be worse. Right? It's just -1. It's not that big of a deal. But by definition, it's no longer bodhicitta. You can no longer progress. So that's the only thing. But it's not like, oh my God, you're going to the hell. No, it's fine. I mean, it's not.
Okay, so you just clean it out and you go up again to...
Well, usually, because if you got there in the first place, right? I mean, that person has to really annoy you greatly, and you have some strong imprints ripening when it comes to that person for you not to go back. I don't know. I mean, what do I know? But there are cases like that. Let's put it that way. Some people lose, right? Lose bodhicitta if they have strong imprints, maybe in the foundational vehicle. They may have, they may lose their, you know, they have strong imprints anyway, and they're more likely to go into that particular or enter that particular vehicle. But let's take it's possible. So you're now in the foundational vehicle. You've realized emptiness. Well, you know, emptiness is great. It's fun. Though they don't regard that to be, or they cannot develop it, because according to the Svatantrika school, the realization of emptiness cannot eliminate afflictive obstructions. They still have to work on core selflessness. Only the mind realizing core selflessness can eliminate afflictive obstructions, according to this school. So we are talking about Svatantrika school, right? So you still have to realize core selflessness, but like as a side gig, right? Like a side gig, like a, you know, like just as a hobby kind of thing. You're also doing emptiness. You're focusing on, and you realize it even directly at some point, right? Because you meditate on it enough. But you can't use it. You can't use it. You can't use it as an antidote to your afflictions. That's what this particular Yogacarya Svatantrika school would have said.
But it's the conventional emptiness, yeah?
It's not, it's Svatantrika, and no, it's not conventional. It's direct realization. Even directly they realize it. On the path of seeing. First they realize core selflessness directly.
But didn't you say on the path of accumulation they can fall back?
Oh, no, wait. No. Okay, let me say it again. On the path of accumulation of the universal vehicle, they lose bodhicitta and they enter the foundational vehicle because they have renunciation. Very important. They have renunciation, and now they follow that foundational vehicle. And emptiness, realizing emptiness is kind of like it's fun. You know, they meditate on it. Even though it doesn't help them to become liberated, but they've realized it anyway. So then they continue to meditate on it, and they progress through the foundational path of accumulation. If I say Hinayana, maybe it's easier. So the Hinayana path of accumulation, the Hinayana path of preparation, and now they enter the Hinayana path of seeing. The first moment is just the direct realization of core selflessness, the lack of a self-sufficient, substantially existent I, as usual. But then they arise from that, and now their mind is ready to realize emptiness directly. They do that. They can realize emptiness directly. But they don't have bodhicitta, so they can't eliminate cognitive obstructions. And because, according to the Svatantrika school, the realization of emptiness, the direct realization of emptiness, doesn't serve, in this case, as an antidote to afflictive obstructions. So which is really weird. It's total contradictory.
Why is
It's
it
really weird.
quality obscurations?
Pardon?
Like, why is it that such a practitioner from the point of view of a Svedanta tenant?
Yeah.
Why don't we abandon quality obscurations?
Because they need bodhicitta.
But isn't it proper Sankhya assertion that the difference in motivation makes the difference in the obscurations abandoned?
Yeah, that's why. Exactly why.
Svedanta
No, the Svatantrika says the same. The Svatantrika says the same, that you can only eliminate cognitive obstructions if you have bodhicitta. They say the same. Pardon?
What is the reasoning they would give?
Because the merit, you need enough merit for the mind realizing emptiness to eliminate everything. They would also say that, I suppose. I mean,
But wouldn't you say then that the Prasangika,
yes.
a practitioner of the Prasangika, on the path of seeing,
Mm-hmm.
outshines because he can eliminate the cognitive obscurations? Not the cognitive, the intellectually acquired. Okay, no, of course, no, they come.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's confusing. It's confusing. Good. That's a confusion because I find myself getting confused about something that I didn't. This is really weird that the Svatantrika school is not easy. That view in particular, that they realize emptiness directly and don't eliminate the afflictive obscurations. Why don't they eliminate the afflictive obscurations? I guess because that's not their goal. That's not their goal.
Direct opposite.
Pardon?
Maybe it's not the direct opposite for the cause of the
They don't say that. The Svatantrika say it doesn't have to be the direct opposite to remove it. Think about,
But they say that you should have bodhicitta. So
well, you need to have bodhicitta. But you see, like in the Svatantrika school, I'll tell you the reason why. In the Svatantrika school, no, that's wrong. You see, I'm getting terribly confused myself. I have to think about it again. I'm getting confused myself. I have to think about it again. But never mind. Yes. So going back to Thomas' question, they do not eliminate afflictive obscurations with that direct realization because that's never been their goal. Their goal right from the beginning, once they entered the Hinayana path, was self-liberation. Right? They could have decided, they have all choices in the world. They could have entered the Mahayana path again. And now allow me to use this language, because if I now use universal vehicle, I get really confused. Mahayana, because it's easy on the tongue. So they could have, after they lost bodhicitta, they could have entered the Mahayana vehicle again, but they chose not to. Possible. I mean, that's the example they give here. They remain on the Hinayana vehicle and now want to become self-liberated. And so their goal is to remove the afflictive obstructions, the obstructions to liberation, and for that they mainly need to realize core selflessness. So emptiness is like a sidekick, yeah, it's just like a hobby. Yeah. So I guess you need bodhicitta and the direct realization of emptiness together in order to be able to eliminate both afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations. Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't happen here. Okay. It is really complicated. But that's exactly, like I wanted to give you a taste of what we're doing. And that's exactly what we're doing. It is extremely difficult. That's why this is such a major topic. Like, is it a correct syllogism or not? Or is it a correct consequence or not? What does each school assert? And then compare it back to the original assertion. So going through all of them, though it's true, none of them accept the pervasion, and from that you already know it can't be a correct consequence for them. But you don't stop there. You compare each of the other ones, assertions, and it's kind of like, almost like a reminder, because most of our studies, we do study the tenet schools, but only for 1 month. So after 1 month, you're like, yeah, right. You have some foundation. It's very, very shaky. And then once you have that foundation, you then, with everything else, learn them again and again and again. It always comes up again and again and again and again. And this is the same for Lorik, by the way. Right now I'm writing a handout for Lorik, I have to basically write a book. It's 125 AA pages, and I've got 3 weeks left. I started it too late, but I'm so into Logic right now. So it's actually like having just finished the introduction. So in Logic, actually, you study Logic for about a few months in the beginning. That is just like studying tenets. You have some foundation, but everything else is a study of Logic. Every topic is a topic. Is you know, what does your mind have to realize? Uma is the study of Logic because you learn what object you have to realize in order to transform your mind. Parchin is a study of Logic because you learn the different stages and meditations you have to go through in order to transform your mind. It's all study of Logic. So these preparatory topics are actually like Logic in particular and tenets. It's like a thread throughout all your studies. Without Logic, impossible. Without tenets, impossible. That's why I love teaching tenets, because I realize without it, you might as well, give up. Because it comes up again and again. What are you going to do if you don't want to study tenets here? The 3 reasonings, so important. Yeah. All right. Okay. So now the debate. Okay. So sorry. A little bit more time. We have a little bit more of chit chat in the beginning. So questions are welcome. But let me start with the debate because that's a little easier once we get to the actual debate part. So that will hopefully lift some of the confusion. So even though the Yogacara Svatantrika accept that some hearers and solitary realizers cognize emptiness, this does not contradict their position that bodhisattvas surpass all hearers and solitary realizers. This is because for those few practitioners of the foundational vehicles who realize emptiness, such realization is not the principal object of realization and therefore not the means by which they eliminate afflictive obstructions. That's what I just said, right? In short, the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas reject the second position, but accept the third, whereas the Chittamartins and Svatantrikas reject both the second and the third. Since none of these systems accept all 3 positions, none incurs the contradiction with respect to the 3 spheres. So for none of them, it's a correct consequence, right? So if you just read it again and go through the explanation, hopefully it becomes clear. For that reason, the consequence is not directed towards them. This leaves the debate open as to whom is the consequence actually directed. Why? And so how would you present this in the traditional debate format? Okay, so take the subject, the first reasoning. It follows that it's a correct consequence, because there would be no point in citing a consequence here if it were not correct, right? So if you have like someone sitting there, take the subject, the first reasoning, it follows it's a correct consequence. If you say why, you can answer why, and I say, because there would be no point in citing a consequence here if it's not a correct one. So basically you would say, I accept. Okay. You could either say it follows it's a correct consequence, pause there and wait for an answer, or you can give the whole statement together. You can actually do that. Sometimes you do that in a debate. So anyway, the other person says, I accept. Take the subject, the first reasoning. It follows that the person to whom it is directed falls into direct contradiction with respect to the 3 spheres or the 3 positions, right? Those 3 positions. Because it's a correct consequence. I accept.
If someone says accept,
But-
do they accept also the reason that
You sometimes do that in a debate, especially in the beginning. You give the reason right away. Yeah, you can. If you don't give the reason, they can say why, right? They say why.
accept only a predicate in such a case, or do they also
Sorry, yes, of course. Only the thesis is accepted. So take the subject, the first reasoning. It follows that the person to whom is directed falls into direct contradiction with respect to the 3 spheres. That is accepted here.
So if the observation is wrong, they still say accept. Or they would say observation.
They would say there's no pervasion. That's different.
But if you accept the predicate,
They say, I accept. No, look. They haven't had the chance. I mean, this is a little difficult. This is like usually when you learn to debate, then you're told strictly, you only say take the subject X, it follows it's Y, right? So take the subject, the first reasoning, it follows as a correct consequence. You have to pause there and give the other person the opportunity to say, I accept, right? But sometimes, as it's not always, the rules are not always kept. You can say, for instance, this, you can just say the whole reason. And if the other person say they accept, they don't believe there's no pervasion, they don't believe the reason is not established, they accept in the first place. They just accept the thesis.
So accept the thesis, the reason is established, and the pervasion, if they say accept.
Yeah, exactly. They accept that, exactly, the reason is established, they accept everything about this.
Because if they accept only the thesis, so if they reject the pervasion, they would say no pervasion.
That's
So
right. That's right. Exactly. But that's not the case here. So also for you, I mean, it could have also been in a different way. I'm saying, take the subject, the first reasoning, it follows it's a correct consequence. You say why? And I say, because there would be no point in citing a consequence here if it were not correct. And you go, oh yeah, that's right, that's true, I accept, right? So because you're only starting the debate, you're not going to get hung on to like them saying, oh, why? So now they have to give a different response. You don't get hung up on that. Yes.
Why?
Why? Who said why? Oh, okay. Because you that's not your main, that's not, you want to get to the juicy bits. It's like,
How can I accept something which maybe not correct?
well, I mean, this is just how the debate works. Take the subject, the first reasoning. It follows that it is a correct consequence. So if you say, either you say, I accept, right? Or you say, why? Those are the two possibilities. If you say, I accept, okay, it's a correct consequence. If you say, why? Then I have to give you a reason, which would be because there would be no point in citing a consequence here if it were not correct. And then you realize, oh yeah, I can accept that. You can let go of your initial opposition or your initial disagreement, saying why. When you say why, it's implied you don't agree. You want to have a reason for why. But you cannot say there's no pervasion because, well, it's true that if there's no point in reciting a consequence, if it is not correct, then it necessarily means here it must be a correct consequence, right? And just the fact that there is no point in this situation to recite a correct consequence is also correct. Am I making sense? I mean, for those who are more familiar with the debate, this is like the structure of the debate. So if you're familiar with the debate, you don't have that trouble. If you're not familiar, first just listen. You see, what I learned also from last class, where I really tried to explain it. What did I do? What do I do if I try to explain it too much? It's kind of like giving you a driving lesson, and without making you drive, I explain you how to drive for an hour and a half. This is not going to help. This is also not how I learned it. Actually, debating is learning through doing. So that means either you go to the debate ground, you have no idea what you're doing, and hopefully the other person does a little bit. But you know what you do in the beginning? The first debate, it's ridiculous, but it works. You memorize a debate. You memorize a debate, a full debate. Someone says this is such and such. Someone makes an argument, and then you memorize both the argument and the answer. And it's a set. It's a set. And so you have memorized, let's say, 5 debates. So now, first you go to the debate ground. Now you're the debater, and the other person answers. But you memorized what you have to say, and the other person answering has memorized their debate. You do that for 2 weeks, maybe a little shorter. And I remember when we did this, people who knew me, they came to the debate ground. Wow, you can debate. I didn't tell them, I just memorized it. It looked very good, right? But because you say over and over and over again, you get into the movement. So now you learn how to speak and move. That's not that easy. You have to, clap your hand when the sentence is finished. So get the movement right, But you memorized it. And by saying it again and again, slowly you understand what you're saying. right? You've memorized it already. That helps to understand. And because you do it so often, it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer, the logic behind it. And so take turns. Sometimes you answer, sometimes you debate. Then once you're done with that, you stop memorizing debates. That's ridiculous. But you read a lot of debates. There are a lot of texts that go just through debates. And you read it, and you read it, and you read it. One person says, I agree. The other person says, why? Then they say such and such. And you understand slowly through reading it again, hearing it again and again. You understand it. So without someone explaining you, oh, this person said this, so therefore such and such. That's like trying to explain someone how to drive on the highway or whatever. It's not going to do it. You're not going to really learn it. You need to do it yourself. So that's why I want to read through this. You get a sense for how it could actually happen on the debate ground. And if you hear it again and again, you get a sense, this is how it works, hopefully. Unless I made a huge mistake how I wrote it down. So let me okay. So yes, you're right. I could have done it differently, but I wanted to at least give you the reason, to give you the opportunity. I could have put it into brackets, okay, into parentheses. Take the subject, the first reasoning, it follows as a correct consequence, and put it in parentheses to indicate actually this is not cited because you accept. That could also work. But I wanted you to hear the reason for why it should be a correct consequence. Take the subject, the first reasoning. It follows that the person to whom it is directed falls into direct contradiction with respect to the three spheres because it's a correct consequence. I accept. Take the subject, the first reasoning. It follows the person to whom it is directed is a proponent of the Buddhist tenet system other than the Prasangika because it is someone who accepts that hearers and solitary realizers do not have to realize emptiness in order to attain liberation. And this assertion is found only among non-Prasangika tenet systems, right? I accept. So far it's okay, right? Buddhist tenet holder to whom the consequence is directed. It's not a Prasangika person, because all this has been established. Posit the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas. You start off with them. All right. Take the subject, the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas. It follows that the correct consequence is not directed toward them. You ask why? Because they're not caught in a direct contradiction with respect to the three spheres. Yeah, I should have put why here. But it became too wordy, so I didn't. I'll change that. Take the subject, the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas. It follows that the correct consequence is not directed towards them. First they said it is directed toward them. Now I'm saying it's not directed toward them. And you go, why? Because they're not caught in a direct contradiction with regard to the three spheres. Reason is not established, they say. They're not caught in such a contradiction. So take the subject, the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas. They're not caught in such contradiction. You don't have to say take the subject again. You can, but you don't have to, because the subject is clear. So you want to say as little as possible in a debate. Sometimes if you want some time to think, you say the whole thing. Sometimes you just need to collect your thoughts and you need some time. So you say the whole thing again just to give you time. Because if the other person notices you have a hard time, they're going to use that against you. So you pretend, it's all about, seeming confident. Right? The moment you feel, you look insecure, you have to show confidence. It's important. It's all part of the game. Because then they become more self-confident. So that's why they do it so strongly. They want to intimidate the other person. And the other person, if they're intimidated, that's very difficult to keep focused. So they have to keep their self-confidence. Very good lesson in self-confidence, right? Convince yourself you're self-confident, even though you're like, oh, whoa. And then everyone is coming to watch you. It gets worse. It's just the other person, the only witness to your failures, them. But if everyone else, never mind. It's very funny, the psychology of debate. The reason is not established. So maybe I'll rewrite this. Okay, the reason is not established. In this case, I will add the why. Take the subject, the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika. It follows that the correct consequence is not directed towards them. Why? They definitely disagree, the other person. Because they're not caught in a direct contradiction with respect to the three spheres. The reason is not established. That's all they can say. Because if something is a correct consequence, if someone is not caught in a direct contradiction with respect to the three positions, it cannot be a correct consequence for them, right? So the pervasion is there. But the reason is not established. So the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas are to say they're not caught in a direct contradiction with respect to the three spheres would contradict the person's view. So they have to say the reason is not established, right? Because they say it's directed at them. So by implication, the three spheres are they have these three positions that are mutually contradictory. That's what they said. And so they have to say, the person answering has to say the reason is not established. And then the debater says they're not caught in such a contradiction because they do not accept the pervasion, namely that whoever has not attained realization of the absence of intrinsic existence is necessarily someone whom bodhisattvas on the first ground outshine in intelligence. The reason is not established. Take the subject, a hero, a solitary realizer, arhat. It follows that according to the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas, such a person serves as an example of the lack of pervasion of the consequence, because although such an arhat does not realize the absence of intrinsic existence, this does not entail that a first ground bodhisattva surpasses them in intelligence. So then the debate proceeds in this manner. I mean, try to establish that. No way. Right? You can't. I mean, no way can you say, and we're going back to the pervasion as Maya said in the beginning, like no way the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika would assert the pervasion because they think it's not possible to realize the lack of intrinsic existence. But the debate can go on. It can go on and on and on. And in the end, you have to let go. So the person who said that the Vaibhashika and the Sautrantika are the ones at whom the syllogism, the consequence is directed, they have to let go. There's no way they can keep that up, as we've seen before. But you can still try. You can say absurd things, and it goes in all kinds of directions, and that's fine, because the idea is not that you come to a conclusion right away. The idea is that you look at it from all perspectives. And sometimes even when you answer, you know it's wrong. You know it's wrong. You know it's not right. If it's done because you don't want to give up and just don't want to give the other person the satisfaction, that's the wrong reason. But you want to see how absurd it is, because sometimes it feels right. Logically, it doesn't make sense, but it may feel right, and you have no alternative. So if you hold on to it, the other person will possibly, if they know how to do it, they will point out all the absurdities of your view. And that helps you to let go. Sometimes we know we're wrong, but we don't know how much it contradicts, how much else it contradicts, how absurd it becomes, on a larger scale. And that's why the debate is so helpful, these consequences. And so you play around with it. One day you say one thing, and the other person throws all these absurdities at you, and you go, oh, no way, this is not working. Then you have an alternative. Sometimes you just see two alternatives. One is absurd, and the second one, now you try the second one, and it's just as absurd. And you realize, oh, there must be a third option. So those two are not the only two. There must be a third one, because all these absurdities that were flung at you. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you see how this can be effective. A further debate that often arises in this context concerns whether this reasoning or consequence can be reformulated as a syllogism. Okay, can you reformulate a syllogism? Because you sometimes can. The text classifies correct consequences into two types. A correct consequence that can be reformulated as a syllogism, and a correct consequence that cannot be reformulated as a syllogism. All right, maybe let's stop here. Oh my God, I realize how difficult this is. This is difficult, I know. But never mind, if you've gotten a little bit, trust me, that's fine. The little bit is fine. Yes, because it gives you a sense of what is all this about. Even when we studied this, we had a really hard time. We debated it, and it was still difficult. It remains difficult. These things are difficult, but that's why we analyze them. Okay, all right. So there's no time for questions. I didn't even check the discussion group if there's anyone left. Oh yeah, there is. Oh gosh. Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't even respond to this. Great. We're done. Okay, so let's dedicate all the positive potential we accumulate together. In the snow encircled land, you are the source of benefit and bliss. Avalokiteshvara, Denzin Gyatso, please remain in life until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.